I'm Bob Harris for Duraamen Engineered Products. Several years ago, Duraamen produced a series of videos that were how-to videos on the complete Duraamen system. One of those videos was the Lumiere Decorative Epoxy System, which got an overwhelming response. A lot of people wanted to see more of that system, and so we just now produced a series of videos that's going to demonstrate the Lumiere Decorative Epoxy Coating System. Basically, we've categorized it into 5 different series. Each series will include 3 color options. Please understand, this is not a how-to video. It's more of an inspirational video to help you come up with some color inspiration and witness some of the unbelievable color effects that you can do with the Lumiere system. So each of those will also, the video series will also spell out where these applications could be used. For example, a restaurant, a high-end bar, tenant improvement, retail outlet, museums, tattoo shops. So enjoy the videos and have fun with the Lumiere Decorative Epoxy System. These 3 color combinations are for video series number 5, which really work great in restaurant, bars, nightclub type of environments, where you really wanted to create a bold statement. So we're purposely working with intense, bold patterns and colors. So in this case, we're going to be working with the colors cocoa, emerald green, and also Caribbean blue. Again, these are just examples, and so certainly you can use any variation of color combination that you feel is necessary for your application. So we have all of the colors starting with emerald green. We have them in a squirt bottle, and we're just going to kind of create a serpentine type of effect here. What's important is when you're working like we are out of a bottle, squirt bottle, don't let the materials set in the bottle too long because they'll start to set up. So on a large application, you're simply doing this out of buckets. So if you're mixing in 3 or 5 gallon buckets, you're simply mixing your appropriate volume, and then you're going to come in and pour right onto the floor, kind of like we're doing right here. So my goal is just to get the majority of the epoxy. Like right now, I'm almost empty on this, but I'm going to leave a little bit back just in case. Here, we've got our Caribbean blue. I'm going to come in and do the same thing, following this contour. And my goal, like I said, it's warm today in the environment that we're working here for these video series. So I want to just get it out of the bucket. Once I get it onto the concrete substrate, I have pretty much unlimited working time to be able to shape and manipulate the colors how I'd like them. So we leave a little bit back. And of course the last color is going to be our cocoa brown. Now on something like this, you probably want to use a small hand trowel to blend the colors. You don't have to. You could use, we talked earlier on a previous video, you could simply use a small window squeegee, but it has to be something that's relatively small where you have some control so we don't just muddy out all the colors and make one solid color. We want to actually try to preserve our colors the best that we can. So now I'm going to come in and work with my green. And try to preserve the colors in individual borders. Obviously, we've talked about 5 different variations in our video series. And this would be considered something kind of bright and intense in color. Wouldn't work in every environment, but for this series number 5, video series number 5, this would possibly work nicely where you're trying to create something pretty bold. What I'll do is I'll work, normally I'd have a variety of tools here and switch my tools so I don't contaminate the adjoining color. But here I'll try to get all the green done and then either switch tools or clean this before I go to the next color. So for example, start with my green here. And since I have it out of the squirt bottles or the bucket, depending on what you're using, I do have a pretty decent window of opportunity to work with the materials and actually spread them out, as opposed to just letting them get real hot inside of the vessel or the squirt bottles. Just trying to get it as close as we can. All right, so now what I'll do is I'll switch to a different tool. Come in here with a larger one and blend in our cocoa. This might be a decent one where we showed in earlier videos where we spritz with a solvent to create texture. This might not be a bad one to do that effect, since we're trying to be very bold in our coloring scheme here. I'm going to come over here and blend this one in this fashion. It is important that you cover 100% of the board with an effect like this, wet into wet. You don't want to leave any areas that are not covered with these body coats here. And then the last thing we'll do is we'll blend in the blue, stand back, take a look at it, and we may manipulate it a little bit. All right, we're going to clean off our first trowel that we used and then blend in the blue. And now the blue. Once you have all of the colors leveled out and you have the generalized shapes that you're going for, really you can have some fun to create interesting effects. But it is important that you get this down as quick as possible when you're trying to work with effects like this before the material starts to set up. And once you get the generalized shapes, then you can come in and create some interesting veining effects simply by dragging one color into the adjoining color, as we'll demonstrate. Okay, so I'm going to look here. Make sure I've covered everywhere, and it appears that I did. And so as an option, you can simply come in here and start to drag some of these colors to create some interesting vein type effects here. Really no rhyme or reason to this effect. Just kind of, no pun intended, go with the flow. Certainly we're doing that here, going with the flow here. But please remember, video series number 5 is, the whole goal is to kind of create very busy, interesting effects considering the environment that we're promoting that this type of an application will go into. You'll find that a high percentage of metallic artists, they really get into their work. They start visually seeing certain effects when you're right down on top of it like we are right here. And from here, the sky's the limit. Have fun with your work and create your own masterpieces. Our second color combination for video series number 5, which again lends itself for restaurants, bars, nightclub type of environments, is really great, and we're going to be using the colors Caribbean blue, copper, bronze, and jet black. The goal being on this video series number 5 is to create bold, vivid, intense graphics. So what we're doing is we're simply starting out of squirt bottles, and as I've been saying on many of the videos, you don't need to come out of a squirt bottle. It's just a little bit more controllable in a small environment like you have right here. So we're just getting it out of there quickly. Followed by bronze, same thing. Follow the contour of that. And as long as you can get it out of the pouring device, whether it's a 5-gallon bucket or in this case squirt bottles, you're going to have quite a bit of time to be able to blend the colors. You can see copper's very close in color. So what I might do is just separate that ever so slightly with a little bit of the gray, just to create a very subtle separation here. followed by our jet black. Now that it's out of there, out of the squirt bottles, we'll have a little bit of time, kind of like we did on video number 1 in series number 5 of this video series, kind of just blending the colors now. This is really an interesting effect also when you start to pull one color, very similar to what we did on the first video in this series. Blend the colors and pull each color into the opposing color here. So I'm not too caught up in keeping it as separated as the first one. Because when we're all done, we're going to come in here and pull some copper or some bronze veins through the blue like that. Got that little bit of gray separation, which should work nice between the copper and the bronze. You know, this is a type of, almost becomes a piece of artwork. And when you do something like this, you've got to take into account the perspective and how large of an area you're trying to create this. So the point being, this might look really cool right in the middle of a floor, somewhere that you're, for whatever reason, trying to draw attention to. Perhaps there's a display. This might be a really cool design. You got to take into account the scale or the perspective of your floor. You know, it might be difficult to create this effect on a huge, gigantic floor, thousands of square feet. However, you could create a big version of this, say 100 square feet, 10 by 10, or maybe even 200 square feet. And then when you get to the outer perimeter, you blend back into 1 or 2 solid colors, just like we've showed you on some of the other video series. So this is an interesting effect to draw attention to. Perhaps you have a display or something that you want as a focal point right in the middle of the floor. This might be a great option to consider to create something of interest. From here, we're just blending the colors. A little bit more gray right over here. It's perfectly okay to bring some of the other colors, which in this case is the copper, bring it right into the gray to create some effects. It's really beautiful color combinations here. I like that effect, so I'm going to continue it all the way around here. I really like what I'm seeing here. I may take some time to come in here and specifically create the effects that I'm wanting. Like, I love the outside of that border. So since we have the time, we may want to pull some of the copper color into this gray separation, which was a good move. I like that little subtle separation of gray between the copper and the bronze, as you see right here. Again, understand the whole intention of these videos is to show you some fun and exciting techniques and color combinations. Certainly you don't have to do everything that we're showing you here. You don't have to create veins in the blue. You don't have to create, multiple colors. But that's the thing that we're trying to do is hopefully give you all some inspiration and some ideas for color combinations for you to go out and try some of the techniques that you're experiencing in these videos. So I like the gray, so I might just put a teeny bit more right in through here, because I like what I'm seeing here. Just a little bit around here. Perhaps one more, since we have the material. Maybe even one more little streak. Now, right there, I don't have to touch it. I can just let that kind of level out and let it level and dry. And I think we've created a very interesting piece, particularly fond of the outside, how I pulled the copper into the gray. So have fun with your work. Our third and final color combination for video series number 5, which again is for restaurants, bars, high-end nightclubs, is going to consist of using the colors antique silver, rose, and pearl. Now, previously on the first two video shoots for the series number 5 here, we showed you really far out funky designs, kind of a ribbon design, blending colors. We showed you almost like the amoeba or something you'd see in outer space with the blue and the copper and the gray. This one's not going to be quite as intense in color. It's going to be similar to the effects that we got in a previous video series, and it's nothing more than taking the three mentioned colors and pouring ribbons with them and simply blending them in. So we're just going to get rid of them, pouring ribbons like you see here. So we're working again with 3 different colors. And then the last color we have is the rose. We've talked about in previous video series about blending colors. That's how you would do it. Just pour a variety of different ribbons and then just start blending them in. And you can blend them either with a magic trowel, a texture roller. For this video, we're going to blend with the magic trowel, as you see right here. We've mentioned before also that sometimes the oddest color combinations, you really don't know what to expect until you've actually put down a floor or produced that variation of colors on a sample board like we're doing here. Because who would think to use three colors, like a really soft color like a rose, the silver that you see, and the pearl, but I really like what I see here already, knowing that these samples are going to kind of level out and create some really nice effects. So you don't have to do it in a linear direction. You can go in and create arcs or cross up the colors like you've seen on previous videos. But that's just a real quick and easy way of blending some colors for our last color combination on video series number 5. Now that you've completed your Lumiere Designer Epoxy coating system, it's time to put a top coat or a clear coat over the top to preserve this canvas. Keep in mind the Lumiere by itself is 100% solids epoxy, which really is not scuff or abrasion resistant. So for that reason, we want to use one of the 4 Duraamen coating systems over the top of that to preserve it. If you're within a 24-hour time frame, in other words, when you've applied the Lumiere, you can come back within 24 hours, and assuming you don't have any outgassing bubbles or imperfections, you could clear coat right over the top without abrading the surface. However, if you exceed that 24-hour window of opportunity, you're going to need to scuff it up or sand it. Basically, you want to degloss it and level out any blisters or bubbles or outgassing voids that you may have. Generally, a 100 screen on the bottom of a floor machine. For more information on that, you can visit the Duraamen website and watch the previous videos that we shot on how to prepare the surface for your coating application. The 4 systems that we're going to be demonstrating for these video series is the Purdue P98, which is a high solids, 98% solids polyaspartic. You can also get their version of this in a 72% solids, which is a little bit lower. What's the difference? The difference is the higher solids is going to stand up to scuffing and scratching in high traffic areas. So other consideration is the project budget, for example. You know, if you have a little bit of a lower budget, the lower solids, the P72 is going to be a little bit more cost effective than the higher solids. We're going to also be demonstrating the Purdue U90, which is a moisture cured high solids polyurethane system. Now, the fact that it is moisture cured, you want to let the Lumiere cure a minimum of 18 hours. Don't apply this product prior to that 18-hour window. The fact that it is moisture cured, if there's any moisture that's trying to come out of that system, it could actually, flash set this off. So 18 hours minimum. Really a great product, high gloss, very, very good scuff and scratch and abrasion resistance. This product is used in aggressive environments like airport or airplane hangars, for example, malls, that thing, where they want optimum performance. Also, we're going to get into the water-based system that Duraamen offers, first of which is U46, which is a water-based glossed polyurethane. Now, they also have a version in matte, which is referred to as the U45. So you can get both systems water-based, virtually no odor. Really great too if odor is a concern. Perhaps you're working in an enclosed area, maybe it's a home, a residential home, and you can't have an odor. Great systems to consider, which is the U46 and the U45.